So rendering a cylinder, this is our first curved surface, and I want to take you through the process on that curved surface, how it works. It's a gradation, although it's more complex than the gradation we did from 0 to 90. So what I've done is rendered out this quick cylinder, and I've just started wetting the paper here to show you how I actually approach this. One thing you want to do, protect those highlights. The highlight is 0. And so you see I marked off my highlight location and my core shadow location, and I've got them away from each other sufficiently so that they make sense. You can see that my cast shadow is lining up opposite of that highlight. Draw a line from here, you have this sphere, it would be here to here, and off you see that cast shadow. So just basic logic, how do you set up an object? How do you establish lighting? Cast shadow has to work with the highlight. So what I'm doing here is actually showing you how I proceeded with the cylinder. This is going to be my core shadow, believe it or not. So I'm working over here, and I'm taking 10 on top of the blender, which is my 0, and you notice how I'm pushing towards my highlight? Because I pre-wet the paper with the blender, I got that beautiful transition there. Right here I want to create an edge just like I did here, and so I'm going to stop right there, but you notice how I get tone of 10%. If I feel this transition is happening too fast, I'm going to go right back to the blender and then pull into that 10% and pull it back out, and look at that beautiful transition I get there. So next step is going to be to actually go into 20%, and on this edge you can see I just darkened that, and I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to go back to my blender. In these really light tones, your blender is a nice tool for actually pulling the tones over and around. So all I'm doing is taking a bit of that 20 rather than taking the 10, because I'm really trying to protect this bright white area. And I'm going to stop right there. That's a nice transition. You can see 20, 10, 0, and really the 5 percentile tones in between. And it tends to glow, which means you're doing the right thing, you're successful. So the next tone over on this side is going to be 30. I'm going to end up with about a 70, 80, but this is about a 30 over here. Now here's what I can do. I'm going to start in the core shadow just like I did on this render. And then I'm going to pull using vertical strokes going all the way out to what is going to become my other side, which I'll just kind of establish it right there. So you see I've got what looks like a dead area, and when I say a dead area, there's no transition. It means it looks flat. That's fine in this case at this point, because all I really need is a base tone like I have here to establish the transition. Always look at what is the lightest tone in an area and just lock in that lightest tone, and what you will see is that you can actually speed up your rendering process. So now switching to, well, that's actually still 30. Let me get a hold of a 50 if I can do it here. 40 will do the trick. So we're going to kind of go through the progression. 40, and this is where my core shadow is going to be centered. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to go right back out to a 10. And you're probably asking, why are you going way back to a 10? Well, the reason is I want to extend this transition out more. And that means I've got to go even back to my blender. Nice thing about watching this is you can see how I adapt. I go up and down the tonal scale all the way back to the blender when I feel I need to. And look at how I use the blender, and I've got to widen this range of tones from the core shadow to the highlight without actually creating an edge or too dark color right next to the highlight. That's really the game plan here, and I'm just staying on this with my blender, and you can see when I lift the paper it looks like I've got an edge right there, but it's not. It's just where the paper's wet. If I do this, you can see that just kind of goes away. So that'll dry perfectly white. Now while the paper's wet in the core shadow area, I could even go to 70 if I wanted to, but I think I'd like to be a little more cautious with that. So I'm going to go to 50. And let's start right in the middle of that core shadow. Again, and you see I'm heightening the contrast every time I do this. And every time I add a darker color, I don't go as wide with the color. Now I'm going to pull that right out like that and just go about that far there. And next step is going to be to go even stronger with my core shadow. So now I'm at 70. And because my paper, I'm letting the paper do the blending, I don't have to do a lot of this work. The thing that I want to do is actually keep my midtones protected, so I'm getting something like this. That's a good blend right now. I've got a fairly soft edge core shadow. It's actually a little better than the one I have here. Now, to judge the reflected light, I need to actually establish that tone on that side of the object. So what I'm going to do is start with, I could start with 70 if I wanted to make a bold move, but I don't want to go that far. So what I'm probably going to do is actually start with a 60. And I'll just kind of bring that shadow up along the edge and kind of pretend it comes around like this, just to show you that relationship. I'll bring it right up to the edge of the other cylinder shape that I've created. And I do a fill, and I'm going kind of fast. This marker is an older marker of mine. It's a little drier. You can kind of hear that. That is the sound of a marker that's getting a little bit dry. I do keep my markers in this, older markers in this condition, because they can be really useful later on for when you don't want so much juice in the marker. You can do some nice textures with these. But you can see now I have reflected light. That just suddenly pops with that core shadow, or rather cast shadow, established. Next thing I'm going to do is deepen the shadow. So this is just a sample render of what I was doing over here on the completed piece. Just wanted to have you see how I build these tones and how I work back and forth. This video is a lot shorter than the 22-minute video that it took, 22 minutes it took to make that, so I'm going to post this one instead. But that, in a nutshell, is how you handle this curving surface. The top, just like the cube, basically lay in a 20% base, darken from the back edge. I actually used a little white pencil to fix an edge here. We'll get into that later.